Good afternoon, everybody. It is Victoria Thomas in Agent Development. I hope you're having a great Monday. Mine's been a little crazy busy, but that is how it goes. We are going to talk about one of my favorite tools today, which is Google Forms. And before we hop into all of that, I just want to remind everybody that you are muted in this webinar thing, series, whatever, it's not a Zoom. So if you find that GoToWebinar control panel, you have a spot where you can type in questions. So I will try and keep an eye on that as we go through this, and I'll definitely be sure to check it at the end and see if anybody has anything. Hopefully you can all see my screen. You should be able to see my drive right now. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into this and see what you guys think. So here we go. Since it's a Google tool, you can get to it basically from any other Google tool that you're already in. So whether you're in Drive like I am now, or you're in your inbox with your email, all of the Google tools kind of in the upper right hand corner have this like 3x3 dots. I like to call it the waffle because it looks like the little, the little like divots where you pour your syrup onto your waffle. So if I click on this, I get a drop down of a bunch of different stuff. Forms is in here. It's the only one that is purple. You might have to scroll down to find it if it's not an app that you use a lot, or if ever used before, it might be towards the bottom. But you can actually drag and drop and rearrange these. So if I wanted to move it over here or move it down one or whatever. But like I said, it's the only purple one. So I'm going to click on that. You also can just open up a browser window and go to forms.google.com. That's kind of how they all work. Like you can go to drive.google.com and get to things, various Google tools. So I'm in Google Forms here. I'm in, of course, my Tucker account. So you should be able to see up at the top, we actually have a template gallery. We have a couple forms templates that have been created over the last couple of years of pieces that we thought would be helpful for agents. You could use it as is, or just use it as a jumping off point and sort of modify it and make it your own. So up here at the top, if you don't see them in your account, there is this little like template gallery here. If I click on this, it gives me general templates. And these are all templates that Google has already created that, again, you could take, run with, modify, whatever you like. And then you'll also see there's one that says FC Tucker Company. Oh, it still says Inc. We should change that. But it says FC Tucker Company. So if I click on that one, we have 4 different templates that have been created. There's a buyer questionnaire and a seller questionnaire. Obviously pretty standard. And then there's a client feedback questionnaire. This is a little bit more of like, how did I do? What could I have done better? Like getting actual feedback on the transaction. And then there is one down here that says, may we quote you? And that's a little bit more of like asking for a testimonial. So would you mind giving me a blurb that I could use in other places? So that's the difference between those. So there are these 4 that are here and ready. You can mess with them all if you want. And then you can also just create a form from scratch. So we're going to kind of look at both of those types of things. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the buyer questionnaire. If you click on this out of the template gallery, it's going to create your own version and it's going to save it for you in your drive. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. It's going to open up a new window for me. And here it is. So this is the buyer questionnaire. It is roughly 1:05 p.m. If I come back into my drive, I just want to show you, if I go to my drive, and I have a lot in my drive, it's very messy. But if I scroll down, oh, it's right here actually. It says, look, you created just now. Or if I'm not quite sure where it is, things are pretty alphabetical. Here it is. Oh, if my drive wants to keep loading. I lost it. Buyer questionnaire. So here it is, me, last modified, 1:05 p.m. So you can see this is the one that I just created. I have another one here that I created on a different day. But once you actually create this and sort of get the questions how you want it, you don't have to create one every time. You can just use the same form over and over and over again and send it to, as many buyers as you got. Same thing if it's a seller or at an open house or whatever it is, you can keep using the same form over and over. Erin, she said she joined a little late. Where does she find those templates? So let me go back one, Erin. I just went to Google Forms. You can go to forms.google.com, or you can find it in the little waffle guy from any other Google product. And then the template gallery. There's a general Google template gallery, and then there are a couple templates that Tucker has already created of things that we think might be helpful for you to get started with. So I'm going to go back to that buyer questionnaire. So here is the one that was created. Now, these are really robust questionnaires. They have a lot of questions, these ones that have already been created. So it might be a little overwhelming. It just kind of depends on what you're trying to get out of it. So you can see, if I keep scrolling, there are lots of questions. My gosh, there's tons of questions. There's questions about like how, what size bedroom do you need? And do you need a garage? Is it required? So there's a lot of questions on here of like, what specifically is that buyer looking for? If you're like, I don't need all of this, I just want their data, like their contact info, and I want to know like the real nuts and bolts, how many bedrooms, what's our price point, what's our location, you could get rid of a bunch of these questions and just kind of pare it down a little bit. So if I'm like, cool, this looks great, but I don't need to know, let's see. I mean, see, it's even got like birthdays and stuff in here that you can kind of capture up front. Let's see if there's a question I want to like get rid of. Let's get rid of this question. So I don't like this question. I just clicked on it and I can delete it. See this little trash can, this little guy right here? Boom, gone. This question, you'll notice too that they give you different types of, there's different types of questions. Oh, and of course it reloaded. I jumped back up to the top. So let's just stay here at the top. There is this sort of like name. I can click on this and I can start editing these questions. I typed in what the question is here. Google's really smart. It kind of gives you what it thinks, what type of answer it is that you're looking for, but you can always change this. So if it's somebody's name, you're probably going to stick with a short answer, right? It gives them room to type, I think, 1 to 2 sentences. If you need to know a lot more from them, it gives them you can do the paragraph answer, so it gives them more room to type. You can do multiple choice, check boxes, drop downs. You can even do like a linear scale. So like on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 is you hate it and 5 is you love it. You can do things like that. So I can change any of this at any time. So maybe this is a multiple choice answer. And then I can start typing, whatever the question is, here's answer 1. And I just click to add, here's answer, oops, if I could spell, answer 2. As many, options, answers that there could be for your question, you can keep adding. I can delete some of these too. If there's only, 2 answers, I can delete one of those just by clicking on the little X to delete it. I can drag and drop these questions around. So maybe if I start with one of these templates, but I want to reorder some of it, I can come up here. There's these like 6 little dots here. I click on that and I can drag and move questions around. If it's something that I absolutely want to make sure that they answer, I can make it a required question. So I can turn that on or off just by clicking on it. It turns the like little slider guy on and off. So if I want to make sure that they don't forget to tell me their name or give me their email address, I can make it a required question so they don't forget about it. So that might be nice, like if you used one of these at an open house and get people to like sign in at your open house, you could make it a required question so they don't skip it. I can make copies of these. So if this question looks great and I want to ask it again, but something just slightly different, I can make a copy of it. I can duplicate it here with this little guy. Click on that, and it gave me 2 of them. I don't really need to. I can delete that. Here's a long answer text. Here's a short answer text. This one is, date. It wants to reload every time. Here's a multiple choice, a yes or a no. Let's see if here's, how do you prefer to be communicated? Email, text, phone. So different types of questions. If I want to create a question from scratch, you'll notice this little bar over here on the right that's kind of been following me as I scroll up and down. This one here at the top, there's like a plus sign in a circle. If I click on that, that adds a brand new question, and it probably added it either at the top or at the bottom. Oh, it added it right here. So this is the one that I'm currently on. You can see it's kind of like highlighted on the side. And if I start typing on a scale of 1 to 5, oh, it said, hey, it looks like you're probably wanting to use a linear scale. So that changed on itself. As I started typing the question, it was like, hey, this is probably a linear scale type of question instead of something like a short answer or a paragraph or a multiple choice. Thanks, Google, you're too smart for me, kind of scary smart. And then I would just give it, label 1 is like, not my style, to 5 is like, I love it. So I like to use forms a lot, like for LEAP and other classes, we'll send a feedback form at the end, like tell us how we did, what did you like, what didn't you like, and the scale is a nice way to be like, what did you think of the lunch we served? On a 5, it was great. On a 1, it was gross, that kind of stuff. So there is that guy. So this one, let's see if I come back up to the top. So that's kind of how to like create questions, add questions, edit questions, delete questions, move questions around. Does anybody have any questions? I just said take a shot every time I said questions. You're drunk by now. Anybody have any questions on how to sort of do that part? The actual like guts of what you're trying to ask your clients or potential clients maybe. I will pause for a second. No? Good? Okay, cool. So now let's talk a little bit about, and I guess I should mention, there are a couple other things in this little bar that's over here on the right. So I mentioned the add question button. You can import questions. You can also add like title and description. So sometimes if you have like a specific like portion of this questionnaire and you want to kind of explain things, or you want to break it up into different sections, you can click on this and I can click add title, and it added it right here. So then I could say like, this is the portion about this, and I could give a little description. So I can just type in here, like section number 2, and then, or whatever is applicable to the situation, and then give a little bit of a description. I'll show you one. I can show you a form where I've used this to give a little bit more info, because how the person answers really depends on, they need to know some information up front, and so that would kind of inform which answer that they give me. I can show you what that looks like in a minute, but I don't want this one, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. So that's to add like a title description. You can even add images in here. You can add videos in here, and then you can add other sections as well. So if I want to do that, I can actually like give it names. So I can do like section 1, section 2. It just sort of like visually breaks it up a little bit more. I guess see a question in the chat. Yes, Karen. Karen's question is, so it saves the updated form automatically. Yes, it does. I guess I should have mentioned that at the top. That is how all Google products work. So if you, hop in a drive and you just want to take some notes, Google has their own version of Word. It's called Google Docs, and that's how it works. So like you never have to worry about, getting distracted or your computer dying or something crashing. Google is always saving in the background all of the time. So you don't have to worry about, remembering to save this. It's always saving. So if we don't want it anymore, we delete it to keep the forms cleaned out. Yes, so like if you delete it, it's gone. Especially with forms, you can't really go back to old versions like you can with some of the other Google tools. So yeah, as I'm editing, this is what it is. Yeah, actually, thanks. That was a good question. That's a good clarification. Okay, so there is just sort of like the meat and potatoes of whatever it is that we're asking. So let's talk about how to like make it look nice, right? So this one looks pretty nice already. It's got this header here up at the top. It's got the little nod to the Tucker logo on here. Here's how you can kind of edit the look of some of this. So up here at the top, you'll notice there is a little like paint palette where it says customize theme. So if I click on that guy, I get this menu that pops over here on the right. The first thing is that I can upload an image header. So if I click on that, there is a bunch of stuff in here already that Google has created. So you see there's a bunch of images here. If I wanted to use any of these, I could. But again, they've been created by Google, so they're not customizable and they're not going to be like, they're not going to have Tucker or anything on them. You could create your own header and then upload it here. So if I click on upload, I would just go and browse to wherever I have it saved on my computer, obviously. I like to create my own form headers, and I do that using Canva. So if you're somebody who's like Canva savvy, you can do that. The form headers are in pixels. They're 1920 by 480. So if you know what that means, Godspeed, go create your own. You can make them awesome. If you're like, nope, that's not me, Victoria, don't even, you're joking, have marketing create one for you. Just submit a custom marketing request and say, hey, marketing, I need to have a header created for a Google form. And they will do it for you. And then all you've got to do is just upload the beautiful graphic that they create for you. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one as is. And then it even gives you like some theme colors. So if I upload an image, actually I lied, I'm going to change it just so that we can see how the colors change. So let's see. Do something that doesn't have as much color. So I'm going to use this one. It's just purple. And I'm going to say insert, and my theme colors, see how they changed here? It picked out the colors that are already in that header, just to sort of keep things, you know, looking nice, pleasing to the eye. If I'm like, oh, I like this little bit of a brighter purple, brighter bluey purple, it changed this line here. And then I can even change the background. If I didn't want the background to be purple, I can make it white. I can make it a darker purple, a lighter purple. It can just sort of change how it looks. You can also change the font down here, but I wouldn't recommend it. These other ones are hard to read and not quite as professional looking. So I'm going to stick with the basic font. It's readable, looks professional. Cool. So I can close that little menu. When I think that I've just about got this, like how I want to look at it, I can actually preview it before I want to send it out. And there's a couple other setting things that I want to show you before you're ready to send it out. But as I'm putting this together, if I want to take a sneak peek and see what it's looking like, I can do that. So there's a little eyeball up here at the top and it says preview. If I hover over it, if I click on that, in a separate tab, it has opened up the form that I'm creating. So it's just that I can get a look at it to see if I'm liking where it's going, if I'm liking, you know, the layout and everything. Since I added a section in this one, see how it broke it up? It shows me that there's pages 1 of 2. As I'm going through, I could click next and then go on to the next one, or the client could anyway, whoever's filling this out. So I'm like looking at this, cool. I can come down here, you'll see there's a little pencil. I can go back to editing this form. So if I click on that, it takes me back to the edit screen where we were before. There is an undo. I guess there is like a redo and an undo button up here. So if you do accidentally delete something and you're like, oh no, I can come up here and I can hit undo and you know, pull that back really quick. But once I exit out of this, I can't do that anymore. Okay, so I'm like, beautiful. I think I've got this how I want it. I want to be able to send this out. There's a couple of housekeeping things that I recommend you do before you start sending this to people. One is if you want an email notification when somebody fills this out, you've got to turn on that email notification. So with registration forms, I don't want an email every time somebody registers for one of my classes, right? If I send this to a buyer, I definitely want an email when they fill it out and they've sent me back all their contact information and what they're looking for and all that jazz, right? Like I want to be notified. So up at the top, so we've been in questions, we've been in this page here. I'm going to go to responses, to this middle one. I don't have any responses on this form yet. This is where they would be if I had some responses, and I'll show you what that looks like too. But I want to make sure that I get notified when somebody fills this out. One thing you'll notice here is that this is turned on, so it's accepting responses. Sometimes, again, like if I have a registration form or something, I don't want people to be able to fill it out anymore if the event has passed. I will come in here and I will click this and I'll turn it off so people don't fill it out anymore. But to get those email notifications, I'm going to pop into responses. I'm going to click on these 3 vertical dots here. And this first one is get email notifications for new responses. I'm going to click on this, and then down in the lower left corner, it's going to pop up and say that it's been turned on. There's a little notification that says it's been turned on. If I click on those 3 dots again, you will see that now there is this check mark next to this. So I know that it's been turned on, and I should be getting email notifications when somebody fills one of these out. Okay, so that's the important thing. You don't want somebody to be filling stuff out and then you don't know about it, right? The other thing that I want to show you is in settings, because this comes up sometimes. So I'm going to go over into settings. There's a bunch of stuff in here that you can mess with. I don't mess with too much of it. The only thing I do click on sometimes is I'll come down here to responses, click on this drop down arrow. You can send the people who fill this out, like if they want a response, you can say, yes, like always send them a copy of their responses. You can turn it off if you don't want them. There's even an option where you can say like when requested. So if they click that they want a copy, it will automatically send them a copy. I think always is the default though. That's fine, whatever. The important thing is this guy. So this is turned on right now. This restricts only people in our company to fill this out. You want to turn that off, right? You want to be able to make sure that people who have a Yahoo and a Hotmail and a Gmail and a whatever that don't belong to Tucker can fill these out. So that comes up sometimes. People will create these and they'll email me and they're like, Victoria, my clients couldn't fill it out. And I'm like, oh, did you have the restriction turned on? And then they're like, oh yeah, okay. That's why, because somebody outside of our organization couldn't fill it out. So just keep an eye on that. If it's one that you make from scratch, I think that this option is turned off. But if you use one of these templates, this is often turned on. And so we want to turn it off. So we want to open it up to the World Wide Web and let anybody be able to fill this out. Okay, so that's kind of it. I don't mess with any of this other stuff that's in here. Sometimes I will limit to 1 response. So again, like if it's a registration form, I don't want people registering more than once. I'll turn that on and limit. So if they filled it out once, it won't let them fill it out again. But you know, that might not matter for clients so much. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. Just make sure you turn that restriction off. Okay, so here we go. I've got my form. It's looking snazzy. I'm ready to send this to my clients. There's this giant purple send button up here in the upper right-hand corner. If I click on that, it gives me a couple of different ways that I can send this out into the world. I can email right from this screen. So I could type an email address in here. Just pretend I'm sending it myself. I can send it to more than 1 person. So, you know, if you got a couple of people that you need to send this to, you could send it to multiples at the same time. And you can include the form right in the email. If you don't do that, it just is a link and it's like, click here. This is a fine way to send it. I'll tell you, this is not my favorite way to do it. It's probably the fastest way. It's just not my favorite. I like to come up to this middle one here, to this little hyperlink symbol, and it gives you this really long URL. I like to click shorten URL just so it shortens. I don't know why that's not the default. Don't ask me. I don't work for Google. But I get this short little URL, and I like to hit copy. And then I will go hop into my inbox. I will compose a new email. I will, you know, send it to my clients. New client buyer survey, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, type out a little message. Hi, clients, you know, blah, blah, blah. Please fill out the survey we talked about. Now, I could just paste that long URL in there, right? But it's kind of ugly. It's not my favorite way to do it. And I could say here, and then I can make this word here a hyperlink. All I've got to do is highlight the text that I want to be the hyperlink, come right down here to that same link symbol, insert the link. It's showing me that the text that I want to have the link is that. And then where should this URL go? I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to send it to myself just so you guys can see it. It does take a minute. There it is. So let's pretend I'm just Joe Schmo, the client. I'm in my inbox. I get this email. And we've probably already talked about this. Like they've probably communicated with you. You're like, hey, I'm going to send you this survey. I would love for you to fill it out. And now all they see is please fill out the survey we talked about here. They click on the word here, and it takes them to the survey, and they can fill it out that way. And then obviously once they fill it out, you're going to get a notification. Boom, you can come in here and you've got some stuff to do. You've got some new information that you could take care of. So let me show you a couple like nicer looking forms and kind of what some of that data then looks like. So like I told you, forms.google.com, it will take me right back to where we started. So here's that. So here are my forms. These are the ones that are owned by me. You're probably going to see most of that. You'll see the ones, it'll say owned by me. I am also part of a shared drive, so I'm actually going to switch to ones that are not owned by me, but your forms will all be owned by you. So here are a bunch of forms that I have used in the past for various things. And you can kind of see some of these headers. I like to create, like I said, I like to create our own for our department. So like here is one for if you want to come to Fuel and you want to come learn about a bunch of Tucker Tech stuff, you can register for Fuel. This one's got like a bunch of info here at the top. And then I've just got like a couple drop downs. One where, oh, sorry, I closed that. Here we go. One that has sort of like a bunch of different sections is my form for our statewide agents. So if one of our affiliate agents wants to come to LEAP, their manager has to register them. And so this is an example of one. We can look at the preview where it has sort of one of those title sections, which is this. So I wanted to provide all of these dates for them without making it an actual question. And then the same thing kind of is here. This one's, well, I guess this one's part of a question, but this one, you can see how much like info I put in here. And it's just important that they have all of this info because they need to know what they're signing up for and what they're registering their agents for. But this is a good example of one of those sections where it's not a question, but I needed to get some info in there and put that in there for them. So this one, it's not too bad, but it's got a lot of info just because they need to know kind of all that data. So let me go back one. Let's look at, once we start getting some of this data, what are we going to do with it? So once, oh, I got a question. If you send to multiple clients in one email, are all of them listed or just the one name that is the receipt? I think it sends it out like different. So if you put, like if you had 2 different clients, but you wanted to send them the same form, it sends it to them in like separate emails. And so when they fill them out, it's like they don't know about one another. You would get an email that just says like this person has filled it out, and then you'd get another, if another person fills it out, you'd get a different notification. So does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Like it's gonna look like it would be like 2 separate things. So I wouldn't send it to, so like if you had like a husband and wife, I would not send it to both of them. I would just send it to one of them. But if I had seller A over here who has nothing to do, or buyer A over here who has nothing to do with buyer B over here, they both just happen to contact me at the same time, I could send it to them at the same time. But again, like a husband and wife, I would just send it to one person. I hope that answered your question, Karen. So let's see what it looks like. Let's say somebody filled out one of my forms, and I know I've got in my trash, I've got an example. Sorry, I got too many windows. I can't see through all of them. Let me go to my trash, and here we go. So this is a notification. This is what it looks like. It'll say your form, whatever the form is, has a new response. And so it says like, hi, your form has a new response. Click here to view the summary. So you don't even like have to hop into forms. You don't even have to hop into your drive or anything. If you get an email that's saying, you know, somebody's filled it out, I just click view summary and it takes me right to that page. So this was a registration form that I created. Hopefully you guys all know that we have new technology coming. We have a new CRM that's coming. And so, oh, this is not the form I thought it was though. I lied, 1 second. This is for fuel. Anyway, you get the point. Like I clicked on it, it brings me here. And then it kind of says, but I want to show you what it looks like with a fresh one. I want to show you what it looks like with data I have not done anything with yet. Here we go. So here's a good example. So let's say I got a notification. It says somebody has filled out this form. It brings me here. And so it brings me to where the responses are. So my point of what I was saying is that we have new technology coming. Hopefully you guys have heard about that. We have a new CRM. It's very exciting. But we want to train all of the branch managers and the branch admin first before we roll it out to you guys. And so I created this registration for the branch staff to sign up. We're having them come over a couple of different days, and I just wanted to know who was coming on what day. So I created this. So this is where the responses have come. So when we created that first one, right, we didn't have any responses, but as people have started filling this out for me, it started counting. So if I only have like 1 or 2 responses, it would be what's in this circle. I have 15 responses so far, which is great. That's about half the staff. Awesome. I can then sort of see who has responded, their names. It sort of breaks down some of this. So I had some like drop downs, you know, I was like, what office are you out of? Blah, blah, blah. So I can see it by this. I can see it, you know, by the summary. I can go to each question and sort of see like the answers for each question. I can then even see for the individual. So I can see all of them here. There's like a little drop down and I can go to each person. So for Tammy, like fantastic. Tammy's from the Noblesville office. I don't know, it doesn't look like she picked a day. Let's see. Michelle, downtown. Michelle's coming on Thursday. Awesome. So I can see by each individual person. Another thing that I really love to do is that you can actually view all of this data in a spreadsheet. And so once I've got a bunch of responses here, you'll notice that there is this little green guy right here. And if I hover over that, it says create a spreadsheet. And that is going to create a spreadsheet in Google. It's just Google's version of Excel. So it's Google Sheets. So if I click on this, the first time I click on it, it says, what do you want to do? Do you want to create a new spreadsheet? Or do you want to attach this data to an existing spreadsheet? In my case, most of the time I want to create a new spreadsheet because my forms are very different and I don't want the data mixed up together. So in this instance, I'm going to create a new spreadsheet. It's already given it a name. It just gives it the name of what the form was, and then it says response, I think in parentheses there at the end. Yeah, so it says responses. And I'm going to go ahead and say create. It's going to drop it wherever the form was living. So in this instance, this form, I actually put, I moved it into a folder where we have a bunch of the stuff that we're working on for this new tech stack rollout that we've got going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit create. Then it's going to link to a spreadsheet and it's going to open it up in a new tab. And boom, here is all of my info. So I can very easily see, you know, names, information, all that jazz. And I think what it does is it locks, see how it locked that first row for me, which is really nice. So I can scroll down and I don't lose whatever the question is up here at the top. You could even, you know, edit some of that a bit, like if I wanted to pull this down and give myself a little bit more room and things like that. So it allows me to see all of those answers. So one that I have like a lot of info in is my statewide partners. So when they register, you know, their clients, they give me a lot more info. So you can see how like robust this one is. I can scroll to the top. I can scroll over. They're giving me a lot of info. And then I actually created a column at the end here that's like, this was processed. And I like to add the date so I know that I've processed their registration. So that can all live in here. So it's just kind of an at a glance. You can see the data that you're collecting, and then obviously, you know, do whatever it is that you want to do with that data. Let's see, got a couple questions. Whitney, the new CRM is coming hopefully the last week of March. The tentative date is March the 28th to roll out to agents. And we are currently scheduling trainings for that week and the week after. We're gonna have trainings here at Agent Development at our corporate office. And then also we're gonna go out to all of the offices as well. So stay tuned. There's a bunch of information about that coming, but the last week of March is what we're shooting for. Aaron, speaking of the CRM, will you be able to upload these responses directly? Not totally. You would probably still have to enter them one at a time because it's not going to talk. The cool thing with the new CRM is that your Google Contacts will link. So if you add them just like to Google Contacts, it will talk to the new CRM, which is called Engage, and vice versa. Like they talk to one another, which is really nice. But you wouldn't be able to upload them out of Forms. So there would be a little bit of work, but I still think this is a really great way to gather client data and especially have them like filling it all out so you're less likely to have, you know, like a typo or a mistyped email or a misspelled name or something like that. With the new CRM though, it's like super easy to just like create a new client or like a new contact. It's a little bit more pared down in a good way than our previous CRM. Our previous CRM is a little bit more clunky and there's so many fields and you can fill out so much information and it's a little too much. The new CRM is a little bit more streamlined and a lot nicer to work with. So, so there's still a little bit of work, but like I said, I think this is a great way to capture client data or potential client data. Okay, so let's go back to one of these. So here's that. So that was sort of like forms in a nutshell, how to create a form, how to edit, you know, questions, create new questions, organize it, make it look nice, you know, give it a nice kind of pretty professional look, and then how to send. So I think my biggest thing is remember to hop in here, turn, you know, these responses on, make sure you're getting email notifications, hop into settings, make sure you're go to responses, hit that little drop down, make sure I'm not limiting, I'm not restricting people who are outside of our company. Those are kind of the two biggest things that I come across. People are like, oh, I don't know when I didn't know somebody filled it out, or my client can't fill it out. It's telling them that they have to sign in first. They shouldn't have to sign in. And then when you go to send it, hit that purple send button. You could email it right out of here, like I said. I prefer though to do like a hyperlink. I think it just looks a little bit more I don't know what the word is, like like personal, I guess. Like if I'm sending a direct email from me instead of it coming from the system, I guess. I don't know, whatever. I could even share this to Facebook. I had an agent a couple classes ago in Leap. He created one of these and he shared it to Facebook, and he just put on there like, hey, I'm updating my, I don't even know if he put, he may or may not have mentioned that he was getting into real estate. I don't quite remember if he did say he was a new real estate agent, but the gist of the post was, I'm just updating my database and I want to make sure that I have your current information. If you wouldn't mind taking a minute to fill this out. And he was basically just asking for, names, phone numbers, email addresses, I think even home addresses, just saying like, I would love to have your contact info. I'd love to be able to send you stuff. He got people to fill it out like crazy on Facebook. He got people to fill it out. So good for him. And then he just put him in his CRM, right? And started sending him stuff. So that's another thing you could do. I think these would be a great, I mentioned like a sign in for an open house. And I think the way you could do that would be with a QR code, right? So we go in to send, I get this big long URL, I copy it, and then I go hop over into the Tucker toolbox, because the toolbox has everything and can do everything for you. And I sign into the toolbox and I'm like, QR codes. I want to create a QR code. And I don't quite remember where that is. I just search for it on the toolbox. And there is this handy dandy QR code maker where I paste whatever website I want to go to. And I click create QR code. And then there it is. And then wouldn't it be cool if I like printed this out, just this big QR code? I could stick it into Canva or ask my admin to make me like a one-sheeter that says, please scan here to sign in for the open house, or please scan here to get more info about this house. And then as people are walking through, they scan the QR code with their phone. They give you some info because they say, yeah, I want to know more about this house, or I don't have a real estate agent yet, or whatever the questions are that you're asking. And then you've captured their info. And again, you can put them in your CRM. You can reach out to them later. You can hopefully, get a lead out of gathering that data. If you had a client appreciation event coming up, you could use this as a client, as a registration form. Again, we've got those buyer and seller. Let's see if I go back, will it show me? Yeah, into the templates. So we've got buyer questionnaires, seller questionnaires, how did I do? This may we quote you, again, is like a give me a testimonial. And then, you could even put in there, I think maybe one of the questions is like, do you mind if I share this like on social media? And your clients are probably going to be like, yeah, we don't care. If it wants to load. Yeah, so like, how did I do? And, they'll give you a testimonial. You could put it on your website or Facebook or other social media, whatever it is. So there's lots of uses for forms. And then just remember, once you have the form that the way that you want it, the way that it looks, you can use it over and over and over again. That's how I get, so many multiple responses, is I'm just sending the same form every single time. Quick tip that my boss KB likes to do is he has the like the buyer and seller forms, like his buyer and seller questionnaire, like saved. He has those links saved in his phone. So if he happens to be driving somewhere, you can even text these links to people. So, maybe he's driving on 465 and he gets a call and they're like, hey, Carrie, we saw your sign and we want to talk to you about selling our house. And he's like, awesome, I'm currently driving, but if you give me a couple of minutes, I'll text a link to you and I'd love to capture all of your info. That way, the next time that we can schedule, to sit down or talk over the phone or talk in person, I have a bit more info and I know kind of what you're looking for, and we can go from there. So it's not, such a cold conversation right up front. They've given him some info. So lots of things that you can do with these. Get marketing to create, a custom header. If you're like, I'm not going to do that, but I want something snazzy, they will do it for you. And then let me know if you have any questions. So anybody have anything else I know I talked a lot, so a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of info. I hopped around a bit. So anybody have any other questions or Do you have any power tips? Anybody, you know, any like power form power tips, whatever? Okay. Well, I don't see anything else in the chat. You know where to find me, victoria.thomas@talktotucker.com. Feel free to email me if you need anything. Oh, I got a question. Let's see. Oh, Marianne just said she'll have questions when she starts playing. That's cool, Marianne. You know where to find me. And I hope you guys, I'll hang around here for another second, but I hope everybody has a great afternoon and a great start to the rest of your week.